Okay, good morning. Today is January 29th, and we're going to continue on in our new module, Module 4, Lesson 2. And your learning goal today, by the end of class today, I want you to be able to explain why a fraction is the same thing as division. Okay? And today's learning goal says I can interpret fractions as division. So you need to not only be able to know that a fraction means division, but you have to be able to explain why. Okay, and don't worry, I'll help you get there. But first, let's talk about our problem of the day. As you can see, the problem of the day reviews what we learned about yesterday, which was line plots. Yes? Good. Let's talk about the simple division problem. 2 divided by 2. We all know the answer is 1, right? We know that in our head. However, let's talk about what division means. Remember I told you there's 2 meanings for division. One is sharing and one is grouping. Let's talk about sharing for a second. Let's imagine I have 2. That's my whole, right? It lives inside the house, but let's not worry about that right now. It means I have 2 cookies, and I want to share them equally. I want to divide them equally into how many groups? 2. So if I have 2 cookies here, and I want to divide them into 2 groups, I could divide them like that, right? How many cookies would be in each group?
1.
Right, there's 1 cookie in each group. So that is a picture that shows that 2 divided by 2 equals 1. In your notebooks right now, write 2 divided by 2. Draw yourself a picture of the cookies. Show how you could divide them into 2 equal groups. Here's group 1, here's group 2. And in each group, there is 1 cookie. Now, let's take a look at this next problem. This time, my whole is no longer 2. What's my whole here? 1. So that means I have 1 cookie that I'm starting out with. Okay. I still want to divide it into how many groups? 2. So I'd have to cut it right in half, right? Here's group 1, here's group 2. How many pieces are in each group? Well, half a cookie. So 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. Because in each group, there would be half a cookie. Okay, I'm going to write over here. There's 1 in each group up here. By the way, up here, is 2 over 2 the same thing as 1?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we're going to keep writing these problems and drawing these pictures. We're going to see if we notice patterns. Okay. Okay, now, what's my whole?
1.
How many cookies are we starting with? How many cookies are we starting with?
1.
Our whole is 1. Okay, we start with 1 cookie. I want to divide it now into how many equal-sized groups? 3. So here's group 1, here's group 2, here's group 3. We have 3 groups all together. How much cookie does each group get? 1/3. Each group gets 1/3. Therefore, 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. Cool. Now, how many cookies are there in this problem? 2 divided by 3. What's our whole? 2. We're starting with 2 cookies. Go ahead and draw them. Okay. We want to divide each cookie into how many parts? 3. So I'm going to divide this cookie into thirds and this cookie into thirds too. Now, I want 3 total groups, right? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That means that one person could get, and each piece right now is 1/3, right? But how many cookies did we have all together? 2. So this person, group 1, could get that. See how these are both group 1? Group 2 would get this and this because those are both group 2. Group 3 would get this and this because those are both group 3. You see that? So how much does group 1 get? 1/3 plus another third, which is 2/3. Okay, looking at these problems so far, we saw that 2 divided by 2 is the same as 2 over 2, or 1. 1 divided by 2 was 1/2. 1 divided by 3 was 1/3. And 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. Are you noticing any patterns? Talk at your table groups. What patterns are you noticing? So far, we found that 2, that's yellow. Let's use black. Okay, 2 divided by 2, when we drew the cookies, we found that that was equal to 1, or 2 over 2, which is equal to 1. When we did 1 divided by 2, we saw that that equals to 1/2. When we had 1 cookie, we wanted to divide it into 3 pieces. We saw that each piece was 1/3. When we had 2 cookies, and we wanted to divide them into 3 equal groups, we saw that each group got 2/3 of a cookie. I heard you guys talking about patterns that you saw. You noticed that the whole always becomes the top of the fraction. What do we call the top of the fraction? The numerator. Then we saw that the divisor always becomes the bottom of the fraction. What do we call that?
Denominator.
Denominator. So what we're seeing is that a fraction is really division. We have a whole, let's write this down, whole divided by a divisor, right? Isn't that how division works? Isn't that how division works? We have a whole and we divide it by a divisor.
Yep.
In fraction form, the whole is the numerator and the divisor is the fraction. The denominator. So, and you can think D for divisor, D for denominator, D for down on the bottom, right? D for knocking on the door. There's lots of D's. Good. So if I see a fraction, let's take a look about what we know about unit form to make this work. When I had 2 divided by 2, what was our unit? 2. No, we had 2 what's? 2 ones. So what's our unit? 1. Okay. When I have 1 cookie here, let's look at the second equation, and you should be writing this in your math notes. Remember when I had 1 cookie, and I wanted to split it into 2 equal parts, 1 divided by 2. Now, each unit is how big? 1/2, right? So how many halves do I have?
2.
So we said 1 is equal to 2 halves, and we want to split that into 2 parts, right? So, what's 2 halves divided by 2? 1/2. And that's why the answer was 1/2. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What about over here for this example? I had 1 cookie, and I want to divide it into what size pieces? 3 pieces, right? So 1 unit is now 1 what? 1/3. So how many thirds do I have altogether?
3.
So instead of writing 1, I could write 3/3. And I want to divide it by how many? 3. What's 3 divided by 3? 1. But what's my unit? 1/3. So the answer was 1/3. Oh, look. The answer is 1/3. See that? Okay. Let's take a look at this last example here. 2 divided by 3. How many cookies did I start with? 2. Luke, write this down. And I want to split it into what size pieces? Thirds. How many thirds do I have altogether?
6.
Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 thirds. And I want to divide it by?
3.
Okay, what's 6 divided by 3? 2. And then what's my units? Oh, what do you know? 2/3. So using unit form is another way you can, it's the same thing as the picture, it's putting the pictures into words, and that's how you can prove that a whole divided by the divisor is the same as the whole over the divisor. Make sense? Using what you know about unit form now, I want you to do 1B in your problem set, and then number 2, and then 4, A, C, and E.